people of the YouTube. Today, we're going to be taking a look at our Cybertruck, and in particular, the rear view mirror situation. If you're new to Cybertruck, one of the things you may not realize is that the rear view mirror doesn't do a great job of showing anything behind you. But there is a camera view that shows up on the central touchscreen. So why don't we start taking a look at that, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to try and do today. And now we're inside our Cybertruck. And if you're new to the Cybertruck, one of the things you should know is you do have a rear view mirror like you do in every other car, but it doesn't really show anything. It shows a lot of black, or in this case, the reflection of my camera, because this is just staring at that, which is the panel between the rear seats, which, well, it is a transparent glass panel. Well, you've got your tonneau cover closed here, which is all black. You're not going to see anything. Now, you can open up the tonneau, and if you do open up the tonneau cover, what you'll notice is at some point you'll start to be able to see some light through the back, which is great. And then you'll get some kind of view out of this rear view mirror. But what I will say is it's very narrow, and honestly, the view's terrible. So this piece is effectively useless. Now, if you're driving, you do get, sorry, gotta buckle my seatbelt. But if you're driving, you do get a rear view mirror camera view here. You can kind of move around. You can adjust the zoom level on if you want to, so you can zoom in, zoom out. And while that is very handy, in this case, it's very small, and that's usually where I keep it, roughly the same size as this. And it's not particularly effective, particularly if you're in a situation where it's raining or you're getting snow, or if you happen to have the tailgate down, where the camera is located, it'll just point straight down. So you're not going to see anything out of there. So today what we're going to try and do is replace this with the rear view mirror camera that we got from Hansshow, which will allow us to use this, something like you'll see in other vehicles. And let me show you something like what that would be at the end. Now, this is more of what Tesla should have done with their rear view mirror camera, right? You should have been able to actually see out the back, and you should have a toggle so you can get a camera. So that allows you to see no matter what is behind you or potentially blocking from your view inside out, you got a camera that's sitting up top, somewhere on the hood, or the roof, I should say, that allows you to look backward. So we're going to do something like that, but in our Cybertruck. Today we happen to be on our Land Rover Defender, which already has this built in. Tesla, you should really think about building something like that in, but thanks to our friends at Hansshow, we're basically going to do the same thing in our Cybertruck. So let's jump back over there. And here we are at the tailgate of our Cybertruck, and what we have here is the rear view mirror camera from Hansshow. So this is a pretty solid looking piece. As you see here, we've got a couple inputs at the top for USB Type-C for power. We've got a micro SD card slot. This will mount into a bracket that'll connect up inside the truck. We've also got a front-facing dash cam, and then we'll wire up, and we've got sets of wires and connections here. And so this will be our rear-facing camera. I know some other reviewers have mentioned they've received their kits from Hansshow that have various different housings for this rear view mirror camera. Our kit did not come with the housing, and we'll get this installed. So this will end up sitting basically right about there in the middle, kind of facing back. So you'll be able to see inside the bed if this tonneau's open, as well as see behind the vehicle. Nice thing they do is they provide a nice solid mount here. So this is metal. Doesn't look like it on camera, but this is a solid metal piece. We've got our standard pry tool. Nice of them to include it. And they've got some other tools that they've included in here as well, and a nice little branded bag. I will say Hansshow is very good about packaging, as well as the quality of the materials they provide. So a few things in the bag here. I'm just spreading stuff out on the tailgate because it makes it easier to figure out what's what. Got kind of a hex tool there, bigger hex tool, regular Phillips head screwdriver, and then we use this to remove the B-pillar trim. It's really just a small hex bolt socket. So that's pretty good. And then we've got a few other pieces up in here. Backdoor rear view mirror camera there, right? So we'll get all these pieces fitting together somehow. I may not be doing it the right way right now, but that's kind of the general idea. Some extra screws that come with that. And then probably the most important piece of making all this work is certainly the screen and the rear view mirror camera here with a long wiring run to reach back out here. But then we've also got our interface harness to allow us to feed power. And you can see the USB-C dongle here into the top of this unit, and looks like we'll be bridging an existing connection inside the passenger side front of the door trim on the front of the car. So that's the basic setup here. So if you want to take a look, pause, freeze frame, here's what you get in the box. That's everything that was in there. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So we're inside the Cybertruck, as you can see. And the first step is going to be, okay, what I find easier to get started is certainly you can pull off the mirror here. It's just got a little ball and socket kind of connection, so that's easy to pop off. Didn't need to show you that on camera. And what I like to do is take this piece of the center trim here off. You can see there's a little indentation on the side. You kind of put your thumb and index finger on that and you can pull it right off. Just be careful. You do have a wiring connection here that runs your hazard lights and obviously your ability to shift if the center screen's dead. And then what Hansshow recommends is there's a little plastic piece cover sitting here on the bottom. So getting a flathead screwdriver and then kind of going up in here, popping this panel off. And then there's a torque screw in there which will allow us to pull this out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we'll kind of pull this whole cover off to get access to the wiring. Just make sure you do it carefully because there are a lot of connections here, especially to your attention monitoring camera. You can see here, you can already see the connection. So you just want to be careful of the wires when you're pulling these couple of pieces off. So we popped our screwdriver up into here just behind this ball joint and just kind of leveraged in and popped down. And that then opens up this little panel piece. I just want to set that aside. Luckily, we got tons of room in the dash here for parts and things like that we may need to remove. And if we look up and under there, I'm not sure if it'll come out on camera, but there's a screw in there that we're going to have to unscrew in order to get this arm out. So let's do that next. Okay, and now that we got that arm out, we can just pull down from the back end here and kind of pull it towards you gently. And again, keep mindful of the wiring connections. And now we've got access to everything, including the hard mounting point here. Just be careful when you're running wires. You want to stay away from that. That's your GPS location discs. If you do run wires close to it, you're likely to get interference and have trouble appropriately determining your location on your nav screen. So when we'll connect in here and when we're running wires, we'll just make sure to stay well clear of that section there. So we go grab the mount and then we'll take a look at the next step. I'm going to go ahead and check, make sure this camera mirror powers on. I happen to have a USB-C cord here from a little power dock I've got. So we'll pull this off here. This is just temporary, just for testing. We'll plug this into the USB-C port on top here and do the ever so refreshing peel. go. So we now seem to have power to this, so it's always good to do a power on test before you get too far. So now we'll go ahead and start taking a look at the mounting bracket to get that installed. So we've laid our rear view mirror camera face down here. Happens to be in our center console, but let me zoom out for a second, give you a little better range of view. So the basic idea is I'm going to take this arm, screw it into here like that, and then we've got this other piece which also has a socket. I'll go in something like that, and we'll screw this piece back up into the headliner. So that's the basic idea of what we're going to do next. So we'll start down here and work our way up. Now we're going to reuse this T20 torque screw that we took out of here and put this in here, and we'll screw that in up there. Oh yeah, you can see we started running the USB-C power wiring. One thing you want to keep in mind when you do this is just take a look at the orientation of this and note which side the screw was on. In this case, it was on the left, as this bracket was facing forward, because when you have your solid Hansshow metal bracket, you also want to make sure that this kind of projection point's also on the left. So when you try and feed this T20 torque screw in up into the hole there, that you're lining up properly with the screw point. Nice thing about this is if you look at the top here, this kind of hexagonal pattern matches with similar hexagonal pattern in the original bracket, so that should fit in nicely and give us something looking pretty close to a factory fitment. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that in right now. A little pro tip on getting this mount installed: if you can get a T20 on a 90-degree angle on your little wrench here, there isn't a lot of clearance space in here. Sorry, I'm trying to hold the camera while doing this. So if you can kind of get it in there like that, you'll have a much easier time screwing this in. Other piece of advice is, kind of get these pieces of the mount together, screwed together here, but don't screw the front of this into your camera mount until you're done. So, lost my bit. So I'll go ahead and tighten this up right now, and then we'll attach the camera and plug it into the USB-C cable there that we're going to start running. And so that's the rearview mirror camera mounted, but with no power. Just want to note while I was here is that you actually can see out the back. So if you've got the tonneau cover open, this is still a reflective surface. So with no power here, if you turned power off because you just want to use it as a reflective surface like a standard rearview mirror, you can absolutely use it that way. So that's certainly a nice surprise. It's a little tough to get on camera, but you do have that option. Back to the wiring. As we're tucking cables here and kind of working our way around, one piece of advice I'll give you is definitely user-friendly neighborhood pry tool. I'm finding better success with the narrow end of it, and just very carefully kind of work your way around. I like to work, ½ inch to an inch at a time. Certainly maneuver your sunshade out of the way as you need to. And just kind of pry up a little bit, tuck a little bit, pry up a little bit, tuck a little bit. Certainly it's easier if you're using two hands and not trying to film at the same time. But just kind of very slowly and deliberately work your way around. If you find yourself getting frustrated because some of these panels do fit pretty tightly and snugly because you don't want them coming off, just take a break, walk away for a few minutes and come back to it and start fresh, because you do get a little tired. It's not hard work, but it's a little bit of a painstaking effort, if you will. So we're just going to go ahead and trace this wire all the way down. That's got our dongles here that kind of plug into or splice into the wiring harness down there, but we'll just continue to carefully work our way around with the pry tool and tuck wire until we can get down into there. And then only got one wire left to run, which we've already got kind of run through part of the headliner here, which will take us back out to the rear camera. So that's it for now. All right, I've still got some more tucking to do around the window, which I'll do, but I did tuck back behind this, I guess this would be the A-pillar. and then pull down through here. What I found there is we're kind of working a sawtooth motion. Works really well with the cable. So, you know, hold it at one end here, another end here, and just kind of work it back and forth a little bit, and it'll tuck itself down under here on its own. And open the glove box to give myself some more room. And there's really two panels here on the side. There's one here at the top, and that's where your kind of transformer will end up sitting. Sorry about the twisting upside down. And then you've got the other one here at the bottom, which always gets a little tricky to see, but I can kind of maneuver the camera in here. You'll be able to see the plug point that we're trying to get to is right down in there. So we'll try and unplug that harness, take our splice here, reconnect things, and then we'll check and see if we got power to the camera. So hang on for a few seconds. And we're spliced in here, so obviously need to tuck these cables away and snap these two pieces back on. But if we go back over to our rear view mirror camera, we can see we now have the front dash cam powered on. So that's a good start, I'd say. So we'll tuck the rest of this cable up here, kind of close up the panels here on the side, but this plug and play wiring splice connector frankly worked brilliantly. It's about as easy as it can get. So even if you've never done any wiring work or anything like that, the great thing with this Hansshow kit is you don't have to. They made it easy for you. Just kind of plug and go. So we'll tuck this in, we'll kind of close back up the trim piece and pick it back up. And that's all buttoned up as good as new. There's just a couple of push clips in here. Just watch your weather stripping as you go. I got this caught a little bit behind the plastic the first time I did it, so I had to kind of pop this back out and basically use my pry tool and pull the weather stripping back out again to get it on the right side. So don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure you keep the weather stripping on the outside of this panel, and then this just pushes right back on. So that's pretty straightforward. Now we do have our kind of cable here coming around the top. We are gonna have to feed out here. I think coming up and over through here is what I've seen in some other videos. And then we can pull down this weather stripping, run through the channel here. There's a bolt you may need to pull off behind here to get this B panel off a little bit to give us some clearance to run the wire. And then once we get back down there, we're pretty close to just going up and over, and then just kind of working our way through this channel. We might have enough clearance, or we may have to take this piece off, let's see, and then basically run out to the center point there to affix the camera. So not too much more. In order to get this cable run here out to the rear view mirror, certainly we're gonna have to pull this trim down and kind of feed it from the inside here to the outside. And there's actually a seam line up here we can run through that's underneath the airbag to get it into this channel. And then we're gonna have to run behind this in order to get it to pop up through the door here, which runs right on the top. There's a little grommet in there already. Anyway, we've got the wiring loom that comes up for the light bar if you've got that. So we'll just end up popping this off then, and then feeding the same wire from the inside up here, and then running it down through the channel. Before we can do that, we got to get this off to get access to that, to get access to the space up here. So this is pretty straightforward. You just take your pry tool, and there's this little plastic panel. You just kind of carefully work your way around. There's really just a couple of clips on here. It's like one on each side, and get this off. And that gives us access to this nut here, which will allow us to basically pull this back. We don't want to remove it entirely. And again, in the kit, we do have this socket, so we'll be able to just loosen this up. So you can see it's actually pretty easy to loosen up. Just be careful of the wiring in here, because we do obviously have power feed to this. And also we've got our camera here on the side, so we don't want to dislodge any of those connections. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to loosen this one up. And then we'll just kind of have this panel come out a little bit, just enough to give us clearance to the space to feed up in there. So we'll go ahead and do that next. One tip on removing this piece of a trim here, as a rubber gasket, is I find it a little easier to start at the corner, and then kind of you'll find that the rest of it gives out just like that pretty easily. But I'd say start at this corner, and you'll find you'll have your much easier time getting access to the channel. We've got our wire tucked in up here that goes to the camera. About to feed it through behind this B-pillar panel right up through there. But in order to do that, one of those things we got to do is pop off this panel. So we find it's really just held in with some clips. We're going to take the wiring run all the way down. So you just kind of stick a pry tool in there and just kind of carefully and gently work your way down, and you'll find it just kind of pops right off. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then feed the wire, as I mentioned, up through this grommet we've got here that's got the wiring pigtail for the light bar, which we obviously don't have. Otherwise you'd see it there. So we'll go ahead and do that, feed the wire down, and then we'll catch you on the last piece of just putting the camera on that back black bar at the top of the tonneau. When you're done feeding your cable up top here, just make sure you reinsert the rubber grommet, and you've got a nice tight seal around the edges. That is our kind of waterproofing and weatherproofing, which we don't want water kind of getting down into this B-pillar channel. What you find is it does seal up pretty nice. I fed the cable out here, the back side, or the side furthest from the windshield. A similar orientation to the pigtail for the light bar. So I've ended up getting the light bar at some point in time. At least they're pointing in the same direction. You'll find this rubber gasket has a couple seals, one at the top edge and certainly a pretty tight one on the inside. The inside one will fit pretty well. And just make sure you've kind of checked around the top side here that this is fit pretty snugly. And you'll see that's where the wire pops out on this side. So we've got the inner seal pretty tight. We've got the outer seal. If you want, you could put a butyl patch or some butyl tape around that too for some additional weatherproofing, or maybe a dab of silicone under here. I don't think it's necessary, but if that's something you want to do, certainly consider that. But now it's just running this wire down the channel and across. We'll have to probably take that plate off next, but we're getting there. By the way, one tip on this cable run, since we're at it, is you can tuck it right underneath the clips here, and that should fit pretty well. It's right next to this piece of weather stripping as well, so you can pull it taut at the end, and then we'll be able to snap. You see the clips here are gonna fit right back into here, and this is outside of where they attach. So I think that'll work pretty well for managing the cable run here. I'm gonna pick up on the other side. So we were over there, and now we're down this end. So we've got our cable run here. I haven't snapped this cover back on yet, but I'll do that. We're gonna take this piece off, and just want to show you how we do that before we do that. So we've got the tool that was in the kit, and there's one nut here. So what we'll do is we'll move the one on that side. There's one on the far side in there. Probably see. So we'll get those two out, and then this cover really just lifts off. That's pretty much all that's holding it in place. So we'll do that next, and what that'll do is it'll give us access to the channel up here, where we can then run our cable and tuck the rest away underneath. And as you can see here, I've already got our camera lined up, and what we'll probably do is just line that up here with the center line of the vehicle. Easy way to figure that out is if you look on your tailgate glass, it's a little tricky to see, but there is a Tesla logo here. It says Tesla laminated. Sorry with all the reflections, but it is glass. So there is a Tesla logo here, so we'll use that as our center line, follow it down, and put our camera in line with the center of the vehicle. And we do have our double-sided tape that'll hold that in place. What you do want to do is kind of wipe down the surface here first with alcohol prep pad or something similar, just to make sure you're not adhering to dust, dirt, and grime, and you guys clean contact surface as possible. So that's up next. Okay, so we got our one bolt out from in there, and by the way, here's a quick not so pro tip, because I'm not a pro. If you lay down in here, it makes it super easy to reach up and get to that bolt without leaning over and hurting your back or anything. And then it's just a matter of kind of give this a quick pop here from the bottom, and you can get to it. Actually, as it turns out, I think we have enough clearance in this channel to not remove the screw on that end, so that'll save us a few minutes in getting everything back together, because this gives us plenty of clearance to get to our midpoint here. So I'm not going to take that side off. You can really do it just by getting to this one side. So we'll run our wire, hook this up, and then check inside. Okay, so that's our camera. We haven't mounted it yet in place, but I do want to test it out. So I kind of remove the lens cover. Got it plugged in to the extension wire. By the way, this red wire you can just cut, so I'm going to snip this off here at the end of this. It's not actually connected to anything. And once we kind of verify everything works, what I'll do is I'll bundle that up and probably zip tie it and tuck it in this space, this void here, because it looks like there's plenty of room underneath this cover. So I'll kind of create a 3-4 inch loop, tie that up, tuck it in here with the excess, and snap the panel on, and that's it. You can see on the top side here, we're all buttoned up. That's the camera. We are going to need to get some kind of weatherproof housing. I think Hansshow sells one on their website. There's a little bit of adjustment needed to do to get those wires kind of setting flat. That's bulging up a little bit there, but not a big deal. Otherwise, that's what we've got on the outside. I'd say it's pretty stealthy. On the inside, then, we do have the boot up here, and our image is upside down. So there's an update we have to install to the SD card. I did download it to the SD card. Doesn't seem to be taking on the first attempt, but we'll try that again, and I'm sure we'll get that sorted out. A few tips and tricks on this Hansshow rear view mirror camera. One is we did find the brightness control. If you just tap gently, it's this bar up here, and it's got a plus and a minus. It's a slider. It's not a tap control. So that's one. Second is, if you swipe left and right, you can get a split screen of front view and rear view. If you go again, you got rear view only again. And now we've got the camera physically flipped over, and you can compare the view in the camera mirror to what you see out of the right side mirror here, just to give you a sense of what things look like. And you've got certainly a much broader field of view on this rear view camera mirror. And here's what you typically would see in the Cybertruck's rear view mirror. It's a little narrower field of view than what you've got in the Hansshow mirror. So that worked out pretty nicely. So that's pretty much it. I'd say if you're an amateur doing these things, or if you've just kind of used screwdrivers and hammers, which are my tools of choice before, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 hours, so you don't get frustrated with some of the tedious work about kind of hiding wires and things like that. I'd stretch it out over 2 or 3 days. It's a good weekend project. If you have installed any car audio equipment before, any other accessories, radar detector with hard wiring and things like that, you can probably get this done in 1 to 2 hours. But either way, I think it makes a pretty big difference on the usability of the vehicle, having that rear view mirror image available to you at all times. So one of the things people may not know about the Cybertruck if you don't have one yet, or if you've only test driven it, is if you're driving and you turn on your turn signals, which you should. If you're a BMW driver, you don't know what those are, but for everyone else, if you do turn on your turn signals, you end up losing the rear view mirror image in the central display. Why that's a choice Tesla made, I don't know, but I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable, particularly if I'm making a left turn at a very busy intersection, maybe kind of 2-3 lanes of traffic in each direction. I'd like to know if people are approaching me from behind and you just can't see, obviously, through there, through the tunnel with it closed. And that's where having the rear view mirror camera, I think, is going to come in extremely helpful. The other thing is it presents a much larger image, and in terms of focus, being able to look in a separate place to get that rear view mirror image, I think, is going to be much easier, because the central display gets very busy with lots of things. You got your speed, you got your kind of use of power regen gauge, you've got all your audio controls, HVAC controls, navigation, potentially cameras if you've got those up, music controls, efficiency gauges, on and on and on. So it's nice they're all in one place. Downside of having it all in one place is sometimes when you're driving, you just want to focus on driving, which means, you know, being able to look up and just see your rear view and what's behind you is helpful. The other thing I think is very important with the rear view mirror camera is if you're loaning your Cybertruck out to somebody, friends, family members, things like that, obviously you got to trust them. They're not necessarily going to be used to looking in the central display to find what's behind them. It's not something that's natural, because every other vehicle they've always ever driven has had a camera up in this location, or a rear view mirror in this location, not down here in the screen. So as they're driving your truck, if they're borrowing it, they're going to be looking up here. And you want to make it as easier for them to get around as possible, because driving a Cybertruck is a little different. It's a little wider than a lot of other vehicles, a little narrower than an F-150. It's also shorter than an F-150. But it is a little different dynamically, because you're sitting a little bit further forward in the cabin as opposed to a lot of other vehicles, even a lot of other trucks. So your sight lines are a little different. So giving them less to adjust to, particularly they'll be adjusting to four-wheel steering and potentially regenerative braking if they're not EV drivers. Giving them less to adjust to, I think, makes it easier and safer for them. So I think this rear view mirror camera is going to come in quite handy for us. And it's something, you know, if you want an update on how it's doing a couple months from now, a year, and how we're adjusting, let us know in the comments. If you found this video helpful, if you've got any other questions about the camera, please also do drop those in the comments. We do try to read and respond to every comment we get. It's one of the benefits of not being Mr. Beast, is that we can do that. So please do leave those in the comments below. Also consider liking this video and potentially subscribing to our channel and letting us know the types of content that you find helpful and valuable. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.